My name is Kevin Sweeney. I am a public information officer with Rocky Mountain Complex Incident Management Team, or Rocky Mountain CIMT1, so we can get through this a little bit faster rather than saying all those things at once. We want to thank you for joining us. We do have a few things that we wanted to cover before we get started. One is that you take a moment to please check your phone and either throw that on vibrate or silent so that we can get through these presentations without those interruptions. The purpose of tonight's meeting is for fire managers and local officials to provide updates on fire activity and suppression efforts for the Oakridge lightning fires. So tonight you'll be hearing from a number of those folks. First will be Cameron Mitchell from the U.S. Forest Service. After him will be Pat Seekins, the Operations Section Chief for Rocky Mountain CIMT1. Following Pat will be Keith Long, our Safety Officer with Rocky Mountain CIMT1. Following Keith will be Darren Clabo, Incident Meteorologist. Following Darren will be Ali Kamal, who is an Air Resource Advisor to speak about smoke. Following Ali will be Brad Petruska, our Strategic Operations Chief from Rocky Mountain CIMT1. And following Brad will be Cliff Harold, Lane County Sheriff. And finally, Incident Commander Justin Conrad will give closing remarks. Before we get started, we ask that you please hold your questions until the end of these presentations. It'll allow us to get through those, and that question might be answered later on in those presentations. We have scheduled time at the end for you to answer questions and set up stations with maps, both in the back corners and in the hallways. Find somebody with a shirt that looks like the one I have on it. We have public information officers, so we want to make sure that your questions are answered. We'll stick around as long as needed to be able to address those for you. For our audience viewing online, we ask that you have any questions, you put those in the comment section, and we have staff available to answer those for you as well. And if we experience any kind of technical issues online, note that this meeting is being recorded, and we will be posting it to Facebook shortly after and provide those links for you. Again, after our presentations are over, we'll meet with you and answer any questions that you might have. And now I'd like to introduce Cameron Mitchell from Willamette National Forest.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Cameron Mitchell. I'm the acting district ranger here for the Middle Fork Ranger District on the Willamette National Forest, and I'm the agency administrator trainee here for our fires that we have around. Before I get started, I wanted to kind of acknowledge a few people in the audience just so you're aware of who's with us, and later on if you have questions you want to ask them, you're welcome to. We have Mayor Kuchin here from, your mayor here in Oakridge. We have August from Oakridge Air, if you have questions about that. And James Clevenger, I saw him, there he is back there, with the City of Oakridge as City Administrator. Green, did you have anyone you wanted to call out?
Hey, good evening, everybody. Dwayne Bishop, I'm the acting forest supervisor for the Willamette. A couple people I wanted to call out: Molly McCarthy from Senator Wyden's office, and Dan Whalen from Representative Hoyle's office.
And we have a late addition, Sophia Francia with Senator Merkley's office.
Yes. I'm not even going to try and say that. So, anyway, welcome. Glad you're here.
Thanks, Dwayne. We have an abandoned phone here, So, guys, I want to start by a bit of an acknowledgement. This is the 4th year in a row that this community has had fire right on its doorstep. And, that's really genuinely not lost on us. And I think we see every year the impact to the community, whether it be the smoke in the air, the danger, and we've had evac notices every single year during those years, at some stage. So it's definitely a stressor on the community. I can tell. We get calls. It's our own employees live in this community as well. It's a huge stressor every single year, and so I just kind of want to acknowledge that we're here again together for the 4th year in a row, and just kind of as we're working through that, it's kind of a recognition of a situation that we're in here in the state of Oregon and in the West. So why are we here? So we had a huge lightning storm that came through a couple weeks ago. It moved from south to north across the Cascade Mountains and beyond and just struck lightning everywhere. We had thousands of starts, the Cascades, and it was followed shortly after by another lightning storm It hit on the east side of the Cascades, and then it's crossed over and hit the west side of the Cascades, over into the Coast Range too. So across the state of Oregon, thousands and thousands of lightning strikes, and we've got hundreds and hundreds of established fires, and all to varying size. In the eastern Oregon, hundreds of thousands of acres, almost overnight. And I think the thing that is striking me is this all happened at once. So all of a sudden, we were calm and everything was normal, and then just like that, we've got 20 critical incident management teams in the state of Oregon. We've got 19,000 firefighters in the state of Oregon, and I think that's out of like around 30,000, 35,000, so a majority of the firefighters in the country are here in Oregon fighting fires, and that happened overnight. So that's super rapid, and it's a huge challenge that we're all facing. And so looking at that, we're in preparedness level 5 as a region. We're at preparedness level 5 as a nation. So what that means is 1 being the lowest, 5 being the highest. That means that all resources are out. So right now, all complex incident management teams, I get that acronym wrong most of the time, all CIMTs are currently deployed. We don't have any in reserve. All CIMTs are working. So that's an indicator of where we are, and this is very early in the season. We have a lot of fire season ahead of us, and so I think that's just something that we as a community kind of need to be aware of, talk about, and work through. I'm going to look at my notes. I usually forget stuff if I don't take a look every once in a while. So where are we locally? Here on the Willamette, we have 3 teams currently on the force. We've got 1 working with us here for the Middle Fork drainage. We got 1 in McKinsey for the Orr fire, and we got 1 up near Sweet Home for the Pyramid fire. And they're all working together. They're all coordinating, and we have 3 teams to our south and southwest on the Umpqua National Forest in their northern zone, managing several fires that are burning. Also, we have state teams to our west working on fires in the county, state, and BLM. So we have a very busy picture out there, and so I think what that leads to, and we'll have our folks talk about this down the list, but I suspect that you are noticing either probably a lack of resources here that you're used to seeing. Not a ton of aircraft, not a ton of big tankers. And the reason why is they're being prioritized across such a huge area that they're very difficult to get. Resources are really limited when you're at this preparedness level with this many fires. And I actually really feel fortunate to have the resources that we do. We actually are, relatively speaking, to a lot of our neighbors, we're actually relatively well staffed, which is a good thing. So I think the last thing I want to just say here is that we are in the long haul. The fires that we're going to get caught right away have been caught, and so the fires that we have remaining are going to be here likely for the season. We might get containment around some, and we might get lucky, but I think we just need to expect that as we move forward, that we are in for a fire season here, and we'll all be working together with you. This is the first community meeting. We'll have more as the season progresses. I appreciate your patience with us as we've brought a team in to help us communicate out. I'm hoping that you were getting as much information as we can get out, but we were working hard to work on the fires that were popping up, and so I have to admit I'm sure that you were feeling kind of a lack of information there. With our team in here to support us, I'm hoping that we can turn that around, get you guys timely information, and keep you informed. And I think the last thing I want to close with here is that some news I have for you is the High Prairie fire was marked as contained yesterday. So that's a win. And I have to say that if you picked a spot for just about the toughest firefighting on the district, that would be it. The proximity to the community, it's essentially they were working around cliff faces and cliff bands and heavy slash and heavy down wood. That was about as hard a place to fight fire as any. So that was a big success. And I think as we move forward, let's take the time as a community and celebrate the wins that we have, and because that'll help us get through all of this together. So I'm going to pass it off now to the team to work through the roster here and get you guys some information.
All right, thanks, Cameron. I'm going to stand over here so we can look at the map. Hopefully we can see the map okay. It's a little fuzzy, but I'll try to... Louder? Gotcha. All right, so good evening. I'm Pat Seekins, one of the operations section chief for the Rocky Mountain Area Team 1. And just here, obviously, this evening to give you a good update and overview of all 7 fires that we're responsible for. And I'm going to kind of go by individual fires and kind of briefly summarize where we're at today and kind of where we're going to expect to be in the next 7 to 14 days. So hopefully we can get through this, and hopefully I can explain this visually a little better for you. So I'm going to start up on the Chalk Fire, and this is going to be obviously north of Oakridge, the northernmost portion of all the fires in the area right now that we're responsible for. So I'm going to start here on the south end. Right here, we've made some really good progress here. Over the last couple days, we've got some small percentage of containment where firefighters are able to go direct right along the fire's edge. Right here on the south end. I'm going to go around clockwise here on the south and west end. If you can see the fire's edge right here, and then it kind of goes to the west. So firefighters are able to go right along the fire's edge here, but they're looking at indirect options from there. The road systems are turning out to be our best control feature, and so we're looking at that there. And we've got a really good plan in there for the future. Some small firing operations are planned, possibly starting as early as Sunday, to bring fire to the west and contain that fire, to keep the fire from moving south and west towards any other values of risk, any other threats to the south. So that's the intent. That's kind of the why behind that tactic there. Moving along the north end, we've got some fire scars to the north. Once again, we're following some road systems right here. Still indirect, still a little ways from the fire's edge. That's the most successful we feel we can be there. If we go right along the fire's edge, it's just a lot of steep, rugged terrain, a lot of heavy dead down. You locals know, obviously with local fire management, talking to those folks, it's just difficult terrain. So we're utilizing existing road systems as control features to slow and stop that fire spread to the west. This operation here, tentative timeline, it's going to take some time. There's a lot of work to be done up there. So that's going to take anywhere from roughly 3, 5 to 7 days plus. There's a lot of work still to be done, but progress is going well. And the Chalk Fire in general as a whole is definitely a high priority over the next couple weeks to really lock that in and hopefully secure that edge. Swinging around the right side, a lot of that line is open. But around this east side, they've once again, they've got some indirect roads utilizing, and they've started firing that today. So firing operations away from the fire's edge has been successful, and they're going to continue that over the next several days. So overall in the Chalk Fire, feeling pretty good about our plan, but definitely a high priority over the next week. I know you can barely see these 2 fires, McKinley and Tire Mountain. McKinley here, Tire Mountain. McKinley. We've got line all the way around that fire. So firefighters did a great job containing that fire with direct hand line. So crews were able to get line around that a couple days ago and hose lines and wetted the fire's edge. So that's looking really good. So that's in more or less containment status. Moving over to Tire Mountain, a lot of the same there, but there's not line right along the fire's edge. We've had to go a little further out, but there is line around that entire perimeter. So things are fairly secure on Tire Mountain. So we're going to move down south here. Once again, some other priority fires. So we've got 4 fires total down southeast of Oakridge here. I'm going to go ahead and start with the coffee pot fire here. This fire has been very active over the last several days. Caused I wouldn't say a lot of issues. Actually, the fire wants to move east and southeast. And once again, a lot of steep, rugged terrain, a lot of heavy dead and down fuel. Initially, firefighters looked at working closer to the fire's edge and looked for opportunities, and they weren't there. It's just not a good place to engage fire right along the edge, and that was just due to risk and firefighter safety there. So folks have identified road system to the south as well as to the north on Coffee Pot. So once again, using an indirect strategy, what we call, so we're away from the fire's edge, utilizing existing road systems and using heavy equipment and crews to remove those fuels to aid us in future burnout or firing operations in the near future, if and when needed. And once again, if we do put fire on the ground, it's only when and if we have favorable conditions, unless that fire is really pushing us. So right now, Coffee Pod, that's the overall strategy here. We're very engaged in a lot of operations here with some heavy equipment that'll start moving in tomorrow. And most of this has been done with hand crews along this road system, securing that road perimeter. But once again, Coffee Pod, it's doubled in size. It continues to move and burn. It's been very active over the last few days. And with these northwest winds we've had is actually somewhat favorable for our current strategy and keeping the fire moving east slowly, but not south and north where we actually don't want the fire to move. All right, moving over to the east on Moss Mountain Fire. That fire stayed relatively benign. It's still burning, but it's very slow. It doesn't have what we call alignment with slope and fuels, so that combination is not really present on Moss Mountain currently. So that's bought us a lot of time and space to kind of develop a strategy between the two fires and make sure we're all on the same page on what we're looking at. And once again, it's existing road systems. Folks did try to go in there and get really close and focus on like aggressive firefighting. It's just not safe to do so in there. Just steep, rugged terrain, a lot of heavy fuels. This is not friendly country over here. So folks are developing that strategy in conjunction with the Coffee Pot Fire. All these resources and supervision are on the same page. And the plan is potentially tie this into the south as well as the north in this road system here and keep the fire from moving north and moving south. And that's the overall intent there. And we're early on stages. We got a lot of work to do. We're talking weeks here. This is definitely a different scenario than the chalk fire on the south end. So these two fires have the most potential currently to kind of move around on the landscape. Moving to the south and southeast here, we've got the 207 and 218 fires. 207, right here we've got 19 smoke jumpers. They've been in there for the last 5 to 6 days doing a lot of good work. They've got liner all the way around that fire, hose around that fire. We've got a really good water source. So that's really aided in suppression efforts there. So we thought that investment was very valuable, so we committed to that, and those guys are doing some strong work in there to contain that fire over the next several days. 218 out here in the wilderness, very inaccessible, steep, rugged terrain. It does have natural barriers to the east it's checking itself up on. It's been active, slowly growing. But really no threat right now, and we do not have the resources currently to staff that fire or a real clear strategy because of the lack of control features. No road systems, besides the natural barriers on the east side, right there, on the east side, there's very limited opportunity in there to engage anybody. So that's kind of the overall summary on all 7 fires. I would like to mention just the great cooperation with the forest. We're definitely leaning on local knowledge with local fire management here on the forest. That has been super helpful. They've given us a ton of resources and a ton of knowledge in this country on how and when to burn, how to engage, when to engage, and really helping us develop those strategies locally and providing us some supervision. So that's been excellent. And obviously the community and all the cooperators, things have really gone well. We're on the same page. We're keeping everybody in the loop and really in sync and making sure we're in alignment with all of our strategies and all our fires on this incident. So that's where we're at. Appreciate it.
Well, good evening. I'm Keith Long, one of the safety officers. I'm not going to try to go through this. This is called a hazard risk assessment or analysis. So anything that operations suggests, we look at it. Can we hurt people? Yes, no, that's what we look at. You're going to see some things up on the left side that are red. Without any mitigations, we're not going to do it. Steep slope. I was out here in 22. We hurt some people pretty bad. 2022, not 1922. But when we look at this, any action we're going to do, we collaborate with everyone. We're all homeowners. We understand the compassion. Some of us are from Colorado. We're all from, the Rocky Mountain area. We've been here. We understand. If you do have questions, I'm going to be up in that corner. I'll be more than happy to take some time. But I just want to make sure that we think what we're doing is it the right move with the right resources. We talked about some resources being short. We don't have a lot of the resources we normally have. So again, if there's questions, please come up after. Thank you.
Good evening, Darren Clabo. I'm the incident meteorologist. Some of you might be asking why there's a meteorologist on the team. Well, there's three things that we look at when we look at overall fire behavior. Those are fuels, topography, and the weather. And of those three things that push fire across the landscape, of course, weather is the most variable in space and time. So my primary job is just to ensure the safety of our firefighters and ensure that they're doing the most efficient work that they can possibly do. Coming into this, we recognize that we are on the Cascades, the west side of the Cascades. July and August are the two driest months, two warmest months of the year. It's been dry. You guys are in D1, moderate drought conditions across the area. I understand that. Looking forward, we have to look backwards. So last week when these fires started to take off, yes, we saw thousands upon thousands of lightning strikes. In addition to those lightning strikes, we saw above average temperatures, and our relative humidity, how much moisture is in the air, was pretty low. But going forward, we're seeing a lot of status quo. Over the past couple of days, we've seen temperatures anywhere from 70 to 80 degrees. 80 degrees is generally the average high temperature this time of the year in Oakridge. Overnight low is about 50 degrees. We've been seeing average temperatures and about average humidity, and that's been allowing our firefighters to do a lot of really good work. Along with that, we've been seeing northwesterly winds, and again, you heard operations talk about that's pushing the fires to the east. It's pushing the fires into favorable areas and areas that we expect, and we're expecting those northwesterly winds to continue over the next foreseeable future, at least the next 2 weeks. Out here, if you get east winds, that's the problematic wind. That's the winds coming off the high desert, blowing towards the ocean. I'm watching out for those. I'm very cognizant that that's the problematic wind direction. And I do not see an east wind in our near future. I understand climatologically you get towards more the end of August and that type of thing happens. So every day I'm preparing forecasts, giving briefings, and we put together these fire weather matrices. Anything that you see in blue here means, hey, that's pretty good. That's going to give you low fire conditions. Anything in yellow is going to give you moderate conditions. Anything in red is going to give you more critical burning conditions. The only thing we're seeing from a critical standpoint is sunshine. Fires love sunshine, and when we don't have a lot of clouds, those fires can burn. And so from our perspective, going now through at least Monday is going to be status quo, very, very similar conditions each day. When we get towards next Monday night, going into Tuesday, there is some potential for some precipitation. I jokingly said the other day that it's a severe drizzle. I don't see a lot of rain with it, but we could get some fog, maybe a little bit of precipitation. I'm not seeing more than maybe 0.15 of an inch overnight Monday night, and that's probably maximum. Most of the precipitation is going to be up in the Washington Cascades. Getting back out into next week, Wednesday, progressing into the weekend, we're going to be in a warming and a drying trend. The temperature is going to come up above average. Humidity is going to go back down below average, but the nice thing is we're still expecting those northwesterly winds. And if we can go to the next one. Unfortunately, on the left here is our 8 to 14 day temperature outlook on top and precipitation outlook on the bottom. 3 to 4 week outlook on the top for temperature and precipitation, 3 to 4 week outlook on the bottom. Now the warm colors are showing above average temperatures, or high probability for above average temperatures. Alaska, cold. Greater US, hot. The reason I'm showing this is we have fires all over the place. I'm from Rapid City, South Dakota. We're getting temperatures in excess of 105 right now. So now our resources nationwide are going to be stretched even more thin. And if we look at our precipitation forecast, below average precipitation is expected across the Pacific Northwest, across the upper Mississippi River Valley, going in the upper Missouri River Basin as well. I do want to say that, hey, near normal conditions across the western U.S. this time of the year is dry anyways. So if it's normal, that means dry. So above average temperatures, below average precipitation. If we go out 3 to 4 weeks, more towards the middle of August, we're continuing along with those above average temperatures and below average precipitation. And by the way, this extends up into Canada, Alberta, British Columbia. Everybody's having fire issues, and we do not expect those fire issues to be going away anytime soon. I'm here, I'll be here for the duration that our team is here, and I'll be happy to answer any questions afterwards. Thanks.
All right, good evening. My name is Ali Kamal. I am the Air Resource Advisor. I'm actually assigned to the Willamette across the fires on the forest. So I'm not only covering the complex, but I'm also covering the Aurora Fire and the Pyramid Fire and Slate Fire North. So lots happening right now, and I appreciate the time to be able to be with you. I know smoke maybe not on everyone's mind or a forefront of everyone's mind, but I'm here on the fires to put out daily smoke reports for the public. So I integrate with the fire teams and try to get the best information possible on what's going on the fires, as well as we have our smoke models and we have smoke monitors throughout the area. Just to give you a sense of what's happening right now, I know fire isn't new for any of you, especially the last several years, so you probably have had some experience with AirNow, fire.airnow.gov. This tells you the air quality throughout the area. The box that I have here is the box that I've created for the fires along the National Forest. So stretching all the way from Eugene over to Bend. Right here in Oakridge, we're seeing the same trend that we're seeing overall right now, which is the prevailing winds are carrying the smoke from the fires out east. I know that's not always the case for everybody, though. Those that live in higher elevations, especially like right up here in High Prairie, I see the monitors that get exceedingly high, especially overnight. And the inversion breaks late morning, and then you still have a lot of mixing. So it kind of gets a little worse before it gets better, but you do have that lifting eventually. And right now we're seeing fairly moderate air quality to good air quality for those areas west of us here. So just wanted to, let you know on the next slide, I do come out with these daily outlooks that first provide a summary of what's going on in the fire and also a summary of the smoke. And I also have the map of where our monitors are located. And these are the monitors I forecast for. So I know this is a 24-hour average, and we've improved on that. The ARA program has improved on that to give you all a better sense of what times of day are best to go out when the air is better and in good or moderate air quality, and when will the air quality be worse throughout the course of the day. So on the next slide, we have it broken down. The website is very on the bottom. Sorry about that. It's wildlandfiresmoke.net. You can go to this website and see all the monitors, and we have it broken down now by morning, afternoon, evening, and night to help the public, again, minimize your risk to smoke and hopefully get out when the air quality is good. So again, if you have any questions, I'll be around, and thank you all for having me.
Hey, good evening, everybody. My name is Brad Petruska. I'm an operations section chief with Rock 1. Pat's doing our lead operations. I'm doing strategic operations. So what are we talking about? Why is there like another operations chief around? My job is not so much focused on the day-to-day. These crews are doing X, they're doing Y, looking more longer term, trying to put this fire in context of, not only what we want to do with it, but what is and isn't possible given constraints that we have on us throughout the system. We've heard a lot about resources already. You guys have lived through a lot of fires. Say in 2022, how many hotshot crews were on Cedar Creek about this time? Probably 10, I would guess. We have 1. How many aircraft were on Cedar Creek when it was, 3,000 to 5,000 acres? Probably, half dozen or so. We have 0 aircraft that are assigned to us. So from a priorities perspective, there are fires that are in communities currently right now. So just painting that picture, that's a constraint, right? That's something that's super different from where Cedar Creek was in 2022 with a lot more limited activity, both regionally and at the national level. What else is different? Your last recent one, I guess, Cedar Creek with the big east winds, kind of a single ignition. There was certainly more around there that were dealt with. We're kind of spread out a little geographically on this, and I think bigger picture, there's 6 incident management teams, and we kind of find ourselves in the bullseye of all of those. So we've got teams on the Deschutes, 3 on the Umpqua, and then 2 others on the Willamette to the north. So not only competition regionally, resources, but also locally. As those fires have their own priorities, we have ours. So we got to be coordinating with all of those people to make sure that the intent that we're given from the folks that we work for, that they're aware of it and that they can address it when they need to. How do we develop strategy? This is a different map. It's even more colorful than the last one. All of these red things, these are values at risk that were identified to us from our agency administrator, mayors of Oakridge, Westfir, Sierra Pacific Industries, all sorts of folks like that with the local collaborative. So come together, start identifying what on this landscape is important. By no means is this the be-all, end-all, but this is a pretty good first stab at what we would call critical values at risk. Those are the things that we would risk a firefighter for to provide protection to. And then from that, we start getting into priorities. Those are determined again by our agency administrators, and several people have mentioned it. Communities of Oakridge, Westfir, and High Prairie are the highest priority value on this incident, with a close second being the infrastructure that serves those communities, as well as further down in the Willamette Valley. And not to put too fine of a point on it, but industrial timberlands are a really big deal out here as well. So we have a lot of values out here. We've got fires in varying degrees of posing threat to those values. On chalk, I think it's pretty clear, right? We're kind of taking advantage of some roads fairly tight in where we can get to. Again, with our one hotshot crew, that does eliminate some tactics that we might otherwise have available to us. If you were to go direct on a couple thousand acre fire in the Willamette, you would need 6 to a dozen hotshot crews minimum, several Type 1 helicopters, Type 3s, Type 2s, potentially some scoopers, stuff like that. All the things we don't have access to. But given the road system, the previous fire, Gales up here in 2021, we are feeling moderately confident that this little piece of indirect, getting it tied back into Gales, will not only reduce the threat to Oakridge in the short term, but also if we're doing this over the next week, 2 weeks, really start to nail down that western perimeter way ahead of the climatological east wind season. So coming in here, we're not locals, but I would stand to wager that a lot of the members of our team, plus the team, either were on the Labor Day 2020 fires or Cedar Creek or numerous other east wind events in the Cascades. So didn't feel the same impacts as you all did, but we were at numerous times at varying places fighting these fires during those events. So that's what's up with chalk. As we move further south, my job is not so much the day-to-day. The first priority gets taken care of by our outstanding ops group. Mine is what's next? What's the next thing that's going to bite us? These two are the next thing that was going to bite us from a critical values perspective. To the south, we have Sierra Pacific Industries Industrial Timberland. Same thing across Hills Creek Reservoir. That's all that red. Furthermore, the fire is threatening this collaborative restoration project that, well, the fire is currently in part of it right now. So how do we limit loss to those areas while being able to do what we can with the resources we have available to us? Pat mentioned it, these blue lines are our primaries right now. So working really closely with Sierra Pacific, who we're getting a lot of equipment, operators, expertise from to help us implement this. These are the lines that we've picked so far. They're challenging, it's a lot of prep. Luckily, we're able to get access to the right kind of equipment through working with ODF, SPI, all of those kind of folks. So this isn't where it stops, however, right? First, we've got to get this line in. And the other thing we're playing against is, well, how likely is the fire to get to a certain point by a certain time? We factored that in. Yesterday, it was really likely because it got right up to our control feature about the same time we got prep in. So from a how far are we backing off perspective, well, that's about the choice that we have available to us, and luckily that worked for us yesterday. As we continue on, we're getting further and further away, but very much with the intention of connecting this back and getting around Moss Mountain. So once these lines are in, which again will take a while, yet they represent probably our best probability of success with what we have available to us to contain these fires, that's not where it stops. We're not just going to sit, wait for everything to take place in the middle through who knows what comes after 4 weeks with weather. The other reason we like this is that Hills Creek Reservoir does form the western edge of the proposed containment area out here. So again, Keeping special eye on these western edges. If we can seal those off in the late part of July or early August, we stand a much better chance of these fires withstanding any future east wind events that might happen later in those 2 months. Once those are done, there is some opportunity in the middle, but we're kind of playing the odds then against how far east does this one want to go, and at some point moss will find alignment again and start moving back to the west. If it works out and we can find a couple and neck them down, we'll be looking to do that. But again, our primaries are right there for all those reasons that I just listed. Now, I didn't forget about these two, but given the work that the smoke jumpers have done on 217, that bought us a lot of time. 208 doesn't exist in isolation. Over on the Deschutes National Forest, we have the Red Fire managed by the Eastern Area Complex Incident Management Team. So we've been coordinating with them, trying to figure out where they're going to bring a line to us and where we can grab that and extend. So far, they just took command. They haven't gotten lines in place yet, and so I can't tell you where it's going to come, other than they're looking at it, and they're also looking on the north end, knowing that we have the railroad, bunch of wooden trestles, tons of other values that we need to keep it south of at the same time. We also look at, again, the odds, and in the next 21 days, there's a very low likelihood that this fire 208 is going to be leaving that wilderness. It's not zero, it's just very low. And so from our team priorities that are given to us from the AAs, we know it's there. We're developing a suppression strategy, but we need to leverage the work that we're going to do on these two first in order to neck down our problem areas between Odell Lake and then back over to the Moss Mountain area. That's what's going on strategically on this. As conditions change, we update our strategies, but that's kind of the balance we're trying to shoot between providing protection to the things that are important on this landscape with the resources we have available and what we can actually expect them to do realistically. So I'll be around afterwards if there's any questions.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Cliff Harold, your Lane County Sheriff. If you've lived up in Oakridge for a while, I mean, it's already been said, there's 4 years in a row. You live in the wildland-urban interface, and you're familiar with some of this stuff. The Sheriff's Office takes lead in evacuation noticing, and we've learned a lot since 2020 within my office. I've got a really terrific team. Tonight, I've got my Public Information Officer, Sergeant Wallace, back here. Lane County Emergency Manager Tiffany Brown is here also. So one of the things that we've learned is that we want to be tied in with these groups right away and have good lines of communication. And so I want to assure you that that's been done. Part of my team's been up here a couple of times already. We've got phone numbers, we've got lines of communication. We get around a map and talk about plans so that we're prepared if we need to do any additional evacuation noticing. The only thing we've got going on up here right now is High Prairie area. It was put in a level 1 during the previous fire that's now contained, and we've just transitioned that level 1 notice for the chalk fire. So it remains up in High Prairie. The reality is, again, when you're living in the wildland-urban interface, we always like to tell you you should kind of live at a level 1 anyway, particularly this time of year, so keeping that in mind. I do want to let you know, if you're paying attention to Lane County as a whole or the state, if you look at any of those things, as has already been said, my team's also tied in with the folks that are up working in the McKenzie. I spent my morning down at the Umpqua talking to that team, many of whom have been in Oakridge before also. So we're keeping those lines of communication open with all the different teams that are working in Lane County right now, so that if any of these end up getting closer to where there's density of population, we'll be prepared. The other thing I want to let you know is that our emergency manager, Tiffany Brown, has been preparing our partners so that if you were here in 22, when we start escalating those evacuation notices, myself and my team do the noticing, but there's a ton of downstream things that need to take place within our community, and so the emergency manager coordinates those things. People like Red Cross, just as one example, but animal sheltering and all of those things. So Tiffany's already hosting regular meetings with all of the Lane County partners, just so, again, that the lines of communication are open, the wheels are greased, so to speak, if we need to start escalating evacuation notices. I will say, I've been up here, I've been your sheriff now for 5 years. I had my first year free of summer forest fire. 2019, I got okay, and then 2020, we've done it every year since then. I'm sure thankful that these fires are where they are versus being much closer to town like we've all done before. And I'm thankful that these folks are doing the good work and you know, focusing in obviously on the strategic means to protect the community, right? So we've heard a lot about lack of resources, and if you look at a nationwide map, you get that. But they're here and they're doing what they can, you know, to keep the community safe, which I'm super appreciative of, and appreciative that when I look at the map, it's up there a little ways, and it's not Cedar Creek when we were all out here, you know, just east of town and knew it was coming. So we'll be here tonight. If you have any questions about evacuation stuff or again, the emergency manager here, if you have any questions about how the Lane County partnership works, if we should have to escalate those, happy to answer those questions. But in the meantime, just know that the lines of communication are open. We're talking and we got our eyes on it. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Justin Conrad. I'm the Incident Commander Trainee for Rocky Mountain Area Team 1. You know, one of the rough things about going last is that everybody steals your thunder. So I wanted to start off by saying thank you. Thank you to the community, as well as all of our partners, cooperators, everybody that's assisting us along the way. The support from the community has been outstanding, so thank you. You've heard from a number of people on the team what our strategies are, what our tactics are going to be, and how we're going to implement some of those. These fires will be with us on the landscape for a while, into the fall for sure. So patience is always one of the things that I ask for, patience and grace. We understand that people are frustrated with the smoke. And the smoke's not just coming from here, it is coming from all over Oregon right now. So I'll be here to answer any questions. Again, appreciate your help and support. Thank you.
That concludes the presentation part of this community meeting. As the speakers have noted, we will be sticking around and available to answer any questions that you have back at these maps and in the hallway. Thank you again for coming out tonight.